Good evening. Hello. Does everybody who needs a chair have a chair? Okay. All right, time is now 5:39 p.m. It is Tuesday, July 14th, 2026. This is the first town hall meeting for the city of Mount Shasta to determine what we would like to do at the landing, the old mill site. On behalf of the city of Mount Shasta, thank you so very much for being here. I am so proud of all of us for filling all of the seats. There's not an empty seat here. Thank you for coming. It's great to have everybody here. There are no bad ideas, any ideas worth discussing, worth mentioning. I'm gonna turn it over shortly to our consultant team, GHD. They are here in town this week. If you haven't met them already, you will. They will be interviewing all sorts of folks so that we have a good cross-section of hearing from the community. There are cards here with contact information to city staff, so if you don't get your comments in verbally tonight, you can always email them to your city planner. So, cards are gonna be right here. We have the room for 2 hours. If we need to stay longer, we can. I don't think anybody's coming in tonight after we leave. And with that, I am going to turn it over to Jonathan. Yep, okay.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for coming out, giving us your time and your trust. So we're going to start with a project introduction and ourselves as well. My name is Jonathan Linkus. I work for GHD. We are a broad service firm that includes a planning department, and I am the planning lead. And let's get right to our team here. I think we've got a schedule, but again, I'm Jonathan Linkus. I'm joined by Linda Congleton. She is our economic strategist. Do you want to speak about yourself for a second?
Yeah. I'm Linda Congleton. I'm a sub-consultant to GHD. I've had my own firm for 40 years. We have a unique specialization in what we call small towns. We adore working with small towns and enhancing the vitality, the economics, making sure that everything works. Our job is to make sure that what is recommended just doesn't get into a plan that is thrown into the trash can or just filed away and never gets built. Our job is successful if whatever gets recommended actually gets built and implemented. It may take a number of years because many of these very large sites do, particularly brownfield sites or toxic, or very large ones. But we're proud to say that we can point to many projects that are up, built, and the community enjoys them. So if you have any questions, we will later on highlight. We were part of the input on this presentation. I will let you know we are just starting our job, so we don't have any answers yet. We're just doing our preliminary field work to make sure that we truly understand your community. We look forward to your input. And we're looking at this because this is a very large site. We have a full array of product types. We call them product types, whether it's commercial, housing, entertainment, community services. We're looking at all of them. So I'll turn this back to Jonathan.
And we're also joined by Todd Tregenza.
Yeah, thank you. Todd Tregenza. I'm a principal with GHD. I've been with the company 18, 19 years now, and my focus is in transportation. We want to make sure that this site, working with you all to envision it, is well connected from a transportation perspective, whether that means trails, access to and from the major streets, looking at how you access the site from the interregional, the state routes, Interstate 5. There will be a process to go through with Caltrans. That's something that I've done a lot of work with over the length of my career, including in this district, the District 2, it's called in Caltrans lingo, working in cities of Redding, Shasta County, my first project in Siskiyou County, so I'm really excited to be up here. And yeah, we'll pass it back to Jonathan to get us going. But if there's questions related to infrastructure, particularly transportation, I'm here. I'm your guy for that. With that.
Thanks. So it's also important to mention that the three of us have actually worked together on California-specific plans in small towns for almost 6 years now, and this will be our 4th or 5th as a unified team. Stepping back on our slides one tick, we are looking at a plan process that is within this year, and we're midsummer right now, and this is workshop 1, where we're talking about vision and initial ideas. After that, Linda is going to buckle down and develop a kind of economic study, and in conjunction with that, we will develop alternative layouts for the site, doing some site planning, but not committing to one. We're going to come back to you in August with a workshop to present those alternatives, and you will have a direct say in site design, site character, density, and uses with pictures depicting what those potentials are. So that's a very creative workshop. We hope all of you, at least all of you, come to that one. And then we're going to consolidate it. We're going to come up with one plan based on all of your input from that. In workshop 3, we'll present that finalized plan as a draft for you to provide final comments, concerns, anything else you want to see in the plan document. Then we'll revise that once more before presenting to the Planning Commission, and that's also a public hearing. And then the adoption process in autumn with City Council is, of course, a public process as well. So there's a lot of stages for you to engage this, keep tabs, see it develop with your voice. So it's an evolution. So that's our project introduction. What we're doing today in workshop 1, we have 3 major goals. We're going to introduce the process as I just began. We're going to share our initial ideas about the overall uses on the site. This is very preliminary. We started about 4 or 5 business days ago. So we have more to come, but we want to hear from you up front. And with that, we're here to integrate your vision, what you want from the landing site, what you've felt might be missing from your community, what you'd like to see more or less of. Any input is good. To review, most of you are probably familiar with the extent of the Roseburg Mill site, and this has been a site in question for the city for a long time. There's a west portion, west of Shasta Boulevard in this map that's to the bottom. And let's see, I have a laser pointer here. So we've got this portion, which was most of the mill, and the Superfund site concerned a significant amount of cleanup in this area. We also have an eastern portion. Here it's at the top of the drawing. And overall, we're looking at about 120 acres of available land. This map is important because it is the product or the outcome of the cleanup process that involves a land use covenant with areas of restricted use. And those are due to the fact that it's safest to build in these areas for housing, habitation, water, but elsewhere, they're generally safe, but we have to limit our uses to outdoor, I think commercial. The land use covenant clarifies that, and that's a public document. So I think some of you might be wondering, haven't we been here before? We've been talking about planning the site for a long time. And indeed, in 1999, there was a planning document that laid out overall land use areas and potential phasing. So that was a first take on what could happen with that site. There was a market assessment. This was a long time ago, a quarter century ago, identifying what commercial uses primarily could fit on the site. It laid out some development standards that we might want to take a look at, and it included some high-level utility planning. More recently, just a decade ago, we had the landing area-wide plan. So this is like a light master plan. It included a lot of guidance on how to market the site to the development community, a sort of economic strategy on the outside. Business owners in town were interviewed. We also had a broad land use concept and a site plan, and it made some high-level recommendations about the environmental cleanup. So that was before the cleanup proceeded. So the question is, what's different about this plan that we're doing or starting right now? We're after COVID. So in the post-COVID era, employment and recreation trends have changed, and that changes the economic input that Linda is going to provide to us. Also, this is post the environmental cleanup. So the land use covenant has established what we can and can't do in key areas, and it also assures us that the site has succeeded in the cleanup process. We're all facing a housing crisis, a crisis of affordability and supply and availability. This is something we're all familiar with and we all face in different ways in our families and our coworkers. So this is very important to the outcome that we put into the master plan. This project is going to have a much more detailed market forecast through Linda Congleton's group. And it's going to be detailed in terms of development types, possibly even discussing some of those tendencies. And I think that's a much sharper long-range forecast than we've seen recently, especially in 2015. There is an interested party that was identified through a public bid process, an open process, that's codified by the California Surplus Land Act. So this would be a developer that is talking to the city and will be a stakeholder in the design process. Shasta is doing very well. It's a healthy community economically, environmentally, with growing markets in tourism, a desire for conferences that want to come. Yeah, the Siskiyou is. Regional economy, as Linda just mentioned, is doing very well. These are things we want to capture in the city of Mount Shasta, and this site is an opportunity for that. Another difference is the last two plans did not have public community workshops like this that are open and creative in style. So we want to incorporate your vision and your voice. We're going to provide very detailed site design that leads to an entitlements package and a CEQA process after our work is done. And I think something that's most important to me is we want to improve on the site planning we've seen to date by providing something that's very cohesive and pedestrian oriented. So all of the uses work in a synergistic way coming together so that each use benefits from its neighboring uses. And that creates economic resiliency and a better public realm for us as citizens and visitors. This is the area plan in 2015. So you can see there's a few uses suggested that sort of commingle on a mixed-use site. I think one of the initial thoughts we had as urban designers is that these uses exist together, but they don't interact. And a lot of them have their own parking. It feels very much like a corporate sort of commerce park you might see in Southern California. I think we can do a lot better than that, and we can achieve a greater synergy between these uses and possibly have a greater range of uses than what you see here. This looks very commercial, light industrial to me. So, and this wasn't necessarily tied to a detailed economic study. So we take it as input, but we take it with a grain of salt. So with that, we want to make a project promise from the get-go, something that's important to us and something that will evolve with your input are our project priorities. These are a little like principles or policies we're starting out with. So we want to support and supplement downtown Mount Shasta and all of the businesses within the city. This does not need to compete with downtown. It has to be timed in a way that as the site grows and the community grows with it, the right uses come online at the right time. So it needs to supplement and bring people in, essentially. It's going to be a mixed-use site. It's not going to be one use. And it has to be cohesive. So all of those different uses need to be close to each other, surrounded by good pedestrian-focused public spaces, a little like a village, if you will. It's going to generate jobs for the local workforce. And this has to be a range of jobs, I'll add. Affordable housing, that's important. I think that's also codified in the agreements the city has made with us and with the interested development party. So affordable housing is required for this project. It may include senior housing. I'm sorry? Great, yeah. And opportunities for local entrepreneurs. So a business owner that might exist in downtown or somewhere outside of downtown, maybe they want to grow, maybe they want more outdoor seating, maybe they want to double in size or open an online portion. They're going to want to see some opportunities for themselves in the site. So it's another way of supplementing and supporting existing businesses. Regionally appropriate form, style, and density. So what we want to bring in here has to be architecturally standardized or codified in a way that befits the image of Shasta. And what that is, we need your help to identify. We can take a lot of cues from what's great about the community now, but overall we want to make sure that the density, the relationship to trees, the relationship to views is something that's healthy and something we're just glad to visit and see. We don't want to import something. It has to be resilient economically. So this means that if we have a downturn or a shift, those buildings can be used in a different way. So certain buildings need to have a flexibility for different tendencies. And it has to be environmentally resilient too. So that includes ways that allow you to park once on the site and not need to park 2 or 3 times to visit different uses. People from outside the community can park once. Maybe they can catch a tram up into downtown. These kind of things can also be put into the master plan. And also stormwater control. Can we retain stormwater on the site so that it's cleaned before it leaves the site? These are things that we like to think of when we think of master planning for environmental resiliency. What this project will not include, this is just as important as our promises. Data centers and telecom uses. These are big, low employment economic entities that don't belong in Mount Shasta, maybe somewhere else in the country. We don't intend to bring back large-scale heavy industrial like the mill that existed before. It was a great employer at one time. The economy has shifted, and so has Mount Shasta's economy and culture. We don't intend for a single user or single employer, so it's not going to be all one site for one big resort or one big hotel. It's going to be a mixed-use site with multiple parcels. In that sense, we're also ensuring that it's the granularity of the city you have today. It's not going to be in direct competition with downtown, so we're not bringing in a copy of a business you already have. And that's a part of Linda Congleton's assessment of what's suitable, and that makes economic sense. You don't want to have something that's copycatting and competing. You want to make sure that it's going to have its own advantage in its own ways, and that's how you get economic health. No major sound or light impact. There's some discussion in this presentation about an amphitheater or events. So when I come here, I've got family in Reno, Nevada. The dark sky is something I cherish. My family and I look up at night when we're in Tahoe. It's the same thing here. When I come here, these are the things that are precious to me. So we want to make sure that there's a standard for lighting control in dark skies, and any amphitheater or like music event use has to be shielded or positioned on the site that directs the sound away from the community. These are all the details in the urban design. No major utilities, so we're not talking about a big infrastructural use like water treatment or sorting, disposal. Car sales are not a use we're considering here, if that was a concern. Storage, like personal storage, doesn't employ a lot of people. It's not a real economic agitator in the way we would like to see on the site. We're not considering a large truck stop, if that's a concern, proximal to the 5. So these are just thoughts we've had in the last 4 days of working on this. And so with that, we're going to review some initial ideas about development types. These entail a use, an activity, how they might look, and these are just draft thoughts. These are thoughts we've had in the first 4 days of working on this. So this will evolve with Linda's economic research and your input. So Linda, you please chime in on any of these.
Thank you. What we're really looking for you, too, is what is most important in terms of primary home uses that could be on the site. We're looking at for sale, affordable for sale. We're looking at small units, cottage units. We're looking at rentals. We're looking at a broad spectrum, so we'd love to hear your input and what is most important to you. So these are just very preliminary looks, but we would like your feedback on them.
Here, you can hold that. I think this, okay. Is this working? Yeah. All right, so development types, we've got a few to review here. And again, these are just initial thoughts. Main uses considered at this time, a hotel type, retail type, housing type, multi-use, and some ideas about resorts. And we're also going to discuss a broad bullet list of community facilities and outdoor uses. This is real simple stuff. So for a hotel type, we're looking at a limited service. This is something that exists in a lot of resort communities, rural communities. It looks good. It's not your standard Holiday Inn Express template building surrounded by parking. We're looking at types that abut pedestrian facilities like this. A lot of these are boutique brands. A lot of them support conference activities that benefit from these well-manicured landscapes, and this kind of thing is outside of national parks. This example, I think, is in Utah. Linda, you brought this example.
These are just some examples in Springdale, if you know the Utah area, where actually these are major chains, but they were able to get them to design them in a way that's much more sensitive to the community.
This is a retail village town center. This is a low-slung retail development. This is the way to do it in small scale while it's still pedestrian. So this is not a mall. This is not an outlet center. This is something that usually involves a green common or a plaza that hosts small events. It's privately controlled in the way that you feel safe. You can park once and let your kids walk around, and it will host a lot of boutique businesses.
We're also looking at ways how you as a city could have an entertainment green space, but maybe not necessarily spend a lot of money on managing it if it can possibly be managed by the private sector, but the community is invited. These are just creative ideas so that you have that wonderful entertainment space, but you don't it doesn't come out of city resources. Just one creative idea.
I think what's really important about these types is imagine a common space like the one at the bottom left here. Imagine that facing the side entrance to one of the hotels we just showed you in that previous image. You can really create synergy where they benefit from each other. A visitor is going to really appreciate just being able to step out and enjoy that space. And these are very pedestrian focused, and these are highly amenitized. So you've got seating, landscapes, shade structures. It's a way of differing a little bit from what's offered in the downtown Main Street format. In the affordable housing area, a favorite of ours is this kind of low-cost, small lot starter home that is describable as a bungalow or cottage. These are one-story buildings. We've seen examples for two-story, but we think one-story is best here. Cost-effective, what we would call a kit of parts architecture, where a pad is purchased and you identify the different architectural features or style. And this is not a mobile home or trailer, but some of the parts can be assembled on site as like a wall or window. Again, small lots. These are trending right now as a starter home type in places like Mount Shasta. These are single family for sale units typically. They're not usually a rental product. And most commonly, they're the moderate affordable tier. So there's two tiers in an affordable housing plan with a municipality. There's moderate and very low. This would be the moderate category, I think.
Well, it differs from county to county, but usually there's low income, then there's moderate level, and then there's market rate. So, but one of the goals that we will be looking at, because it's very difficult to get federal funds, is can units be produced in the community that do not require going after government funds, but are still affordable to the community? That's one goal that we're trying to pursue. Because otherwise you might be into trying to get government funds for 5 to 10 years, and it's a very long, arduous process.
Yeah, this is below the standard rate you're going to find for a privately sold home out on the market. That's what we call market rate. There are rules about what percentage of median price level you're going to see in the housing element of your community plan. So there was a question about this? I've heard the train from my hotel room.
Well, oh yeah, that's right.
So one of the things we're looking at is the site positioning, and I think a favorite for us on the housing piece of this is going to be on the east side of Shasta Boulevard. At least most of that is going to go in that direction.
Yeah, that's one possibility where you don't have the noise factor. It's also extremely attractive over there.
And that's a standard you can set too, the double pane windows. That thing adds cost to homes, but that can also be a development standard. So.
But these are just very preliminary ideas. We need to explore it as we go along.
These look great. This is a new type. When I was in architecture school, you talk about prefab and modular homes, and they didn't look like this 15 years ago. So the interiors of these are basically a modern home. What I like about them is they tend to create these concise, compact, pedestrian-focused community spaces. That's not an attached product, but creates an intimacy that I think is really suitable for Mount Shasta. These inspire me. I think they're really great.
We understand in your community you call them tiny homes, but tiny homes are a full range. I mean, you can be super, super tiny, or you can have 2-bedroom, 1-bath, and they can still be very small.
We're open to other types, and it really, the outcome of your research, Linda, is going to inform whether this is the only product or the right product on its own, but this is our initial thought before we do that.
And before we go on to different products, we didn't get the right pictures to incorporate this. We'd like to also look at rental units that what we call workforce housing for young people who really want to stay in the community, typically these kinds of units are 2 sets of people, either move down renters, people who don't want to be in the big house anymore, or it's younger people that want small, efficient units, but they want everything modern inside. They want it to look cool. They want it to be aesthetic. From what we have seen so far, you really lack new rental housing that is attractively designed. Doesn't have to be super dense and look like it came out of, San Francisco. It can fit the community, but we'd like to give it a character that fits here, but they might be small. But what we'd like to see is bring them on at a size and an affordability. You seem to like a real niche of units within a certain price range for rent in your community.
And that can be a 2-story.
It could be single, it could be 2, it could be 3. We don't see this as high number units, and that's one thing we're looking at. It's also price considerations. We're going to keep the price of the units down.
Right.
But we would like to bring us an aesthetic to the community that fits in with everything.
For hotel types, in addition to the conference limited service offer, we're looking at these kind of boutique camps. Sometimes they're called pod or container hotels. They are cabin style. Some of these pop up as an Airstream hotel where you're renting these very nice, like, appointed trailer. They're basically an amenitized summer camp setting. These are not very low cost always. They're trendy. They're mid-tier and up, emphasizing music, food, and reasons to gather outside of your cabin or container. These are usually destination weekend resorts. You'll see these in the middle of a winery in Paso Robles or on the cusp of the desert in Joshua Tree. So these are in picturesque places. And they are permanent installations, even though it's often a modular architecture. So they're permanent in layout, they're low-key in design, they fit well among trees and naturalistic landscaping. And they're just kind of a low-key way of feeling like you're in a cabin, but it's a little different. These are usually have a unique quality to each one. The one on the bottom left is in the middle of a winery. I thought that was a good example of how these can be instances of high design, and they're creative. And I think there's a few of these popping up in this region that you've seen. Any one of these uses could be tied to a small event amphitheater. Oh, no worries. We're looking at the size, small to mid-size of 100 to 300 attendees. This is probably outdoor, limited size stage, public access, or it could be controlled entry. Something like this could be connected or part of a retail or a public park facility. The example image in the background here is actually part of a modular hotel in the example I just showed a slide ago.
This is actually an example in Montana, and that's well attended. As you can see, they have many events.
Yeah, and they'll sometimes have a limited food beverage connected to that. So that's this example in Montana connected to one of these modular hotels. Some of these are civic examples. The top left and the right side are municipal facilities in community parks. Right now, the city does not operate its own municipally owned amphitheater, so having the ability to control and offer that to you is important to them. This facility could also be something that's indoor, like a conference center with an event or music use to it, like a small performing arts center. I can think of a few examples like that. Moving on, multi-use, flex, commercial. What's important about an example like this is it's a loose fit for a lot of different tenants. And it's usually one story, it's low slung. It's popular with small businesses. Think of like a brewer or distiller in town that wants a workspace but also wants a customer-facing space tied to that. So that's right in the next bullet. Customer-facing retail can be a part of this in surprising ways. These are low-cost spaces, so they're great for entrepreneurs, startups, small businesses. They're resilient in that you can have a yoga studio, and if that's not doing so well in the next economy, it switches to a wood products fabricator, and they're making deck chairs out of a wood product. So in that sense, you can have this kind of no-impact industrial that has a different kind of employment. So it offers the community a form of economic resiliency. I really like this example in Carpinteria, another small town that's resort-oriented. This meadery here has a customer-facing space on the right side, but they also have all of their brewing tons that you can view through a little window on the side. So
we'd like to emphasize that many of these successful facilities are kind of a blend of retail / industrial / entrepreneur. And that was one of the elements that makes them very creative and flexible for your future.
What's great about the meadery example here is out the back, they've got tables, chairs, they've got a trellis with lights, and it's a hangout. The empanada, the food truck comes up, and there's a little bit of synergy there, and they're facing a beautiful meadow out the back door. So yes, it's kind of a simple architecture, but it can create these little magic moments within the community. The last example we're going to run through today is this idea of a kind of a luxury resort for motor coach living or motor coach visitation. Again, a low-slung, low-density site that's highly amenitized. These are usually very well manicured sites. The example image in the background is probably on the luxury end of that example. These are short-term rentals. This is not long-term or ownership usually. Small cabins, bungalows that are next to a parking space for a large RV. So this is some nice living when you're on vacation. Events, food and beverage is usually in a kind of lodge attached to these. Sometimes there's entertainment. You'll bring in a guest chef. So they have a kind of events program throughout the season. There may be a limited number of bungalows for sale, almost like a second home or cabin. And this ranges from mid-tier to luxury. This example is clearly on the higher end of that, but we wanted to show, I'd never seen something like this before doing research on this project. So I was just fascinated by this sort of outdoor kitchen. This kind of thing is a way of coming to a rural area in a flexible manner. On the upper left here, you can see the denser version of that. You get a few more RVs per acre. On the right, the example in the Midwest here, you can see this fits really well in among trees, water features, so you get the beauty of the site while you get basically a luxury resort coexisting in that space. So I thought they were really interesting. Community facilities we've also run through in the brainstorming with the city in the last 3 days we've been here. A community amphitheater, we just mentioned that, but it might be a public part of a park. A performing arts center or conference center that's indoor, small, probably no larger than this, but has a broader range of uses, would be useful to the city. Different events operators have approached the city asking, do you have a conference center? Do you have a convention space? And that's an opportunity we don't want to be missing in the future.
And we wouldn't want to forget something like even weddings and events. To our knowledge,
Yeah.
I mean, you've got the Mount Shasta Resort, but that's a different kind of beast. What if you had the ability to have a small conference center, a beautiful green, people could have, local weddings there. It'd be a nice amenity. And when we say a conference facility, something that really is updated, where you could have small little meetings, 100 people at most, or maybe it's 50 to 100, where they can come up. Obviously, they'd be spending time catering to local businesses, going to the local restaurants. This is the kind of amenities. But we're not talking huge conference center or a convention center. It's more like a boutique one fitting to your community.
A real common use off-season for this is training for companies. They'll have creative retreats, required training, continuing education. This is something that even our own police department can use space. So with that, consolidated police station has been considered. They're in a very small facility, and an updated one that serves the community and its safety needs on site would really be a great potential public use of the site. Potentially some civic center uses, either a new place for council to meet or offices for city departments may have a home in among other uses. We've talked to the city about a business incubator or a community kitchen. This is something where a small business doesn't have the capital for a space, doesn't want to invest in the interior, but they want to start a restaurant. They need a year to get off their feet, get off the ground. And this is not just restaurants and caterers. This can also be a fabricator, something that's working in tech. You get a lot of interesting stuff coming through a municipal business incubator. I've seen some cool ones. A city visitor center. There's been talk about having a new updated one on the site, especially with that off-ramp into the city, so it's still en route into downtown, connected to the community. And lastly, we generated a quick list of outdoor public spaces. So Trail Network is already, there's a gateway at the east end of the east side of Mount Shasta, and that's a new trail. I think that's this year. So we want to bring the trail network onto the site and ensure that pedestrian routes through the site that aren't just sidewalks, they're off-street paths, are threading through and connected to something greater. It's a regional weave. Community park with a pond. There's a few areas that would make a lot of sense for stormwater capture, existing water flows, a plaza or green commons, whether that's public or part of a retail space, I think would be really great. Let your kids run free, don't have to worry about cars. Creeks and stormwater best practices. This ensures that we're not just sending it to a storm drain. The runoff created by new development on the site is part of the beauty of the site, and that's something we love as planners. And to the extent possible, conserving groves of trees and view corridors from the freeway to the mountain, from the site to the mountain where possible. This is something that we love about the site and about the city. So I think we should open it up to some discussion now. Yeah, I think we send it around.
All right.
Yeah, get some questions.
My name's Belinda Higuera. I have I know that there's a problem with infrastructure down there, or there isn't any. I'm pretty sure. And I don't know how we're going to manifest that. But I also am very concerned you have the housing on the east and the, is that right? East, and the development, the commercial development more on the west, and getting across that highway with them coming up off the freeway, so I hope, I'm assuming the person that was the traffic guy has that.
Yeah, the mic's working.
It's bad enough because of the weird turn towards where the old Wayside was, the old 90, I don't know what that is anymore. Yeah. But yeah, it's just a mess, it's a mess. Okay. Oh, you're gonna.
I think we're speaking to crossing safety on the road.
If you want to comment, go ahead.
Essentially, you're concerned about the crossing, the ability to cross the street.
And the traffic flow off of I-5.
Right,
89
right.
I-5, that whole mess.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So we identified early on that we'll need to have a conversation with Caltrans and see what some solutions might be that frankly help both parties. Well, there's many parties, right? There's the ultimate developers, there's city, Caltrans, there's Federal Highways is involved because it's Interstate 5. So there's a lot of stakeholders that we need to talk to about that regional access. And in terms of getting across the street, certainly we want to make sure that when we're planning this out, these are not two separate pads, right? This is one site that has some connectivity across it, connects into that trailhead that we were just talking about. So it's early days, but those are the types of things that we definitely are thinking about. They're the types of things we brought up with the city when we were, frankly, trying to get the job. So.
I don't have an answer. It's more like, are you aware?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. No, understood. And yeah, that from 89 to I-5 and getting off quickly, it's funky.
Imagine if you're on a bicycle trying to get across 89.
For sure.
And
Yeah.
Caltrans has been not helpful, by the way. They're not nice guys.
Who is that?
Caltrans.
Oh, well, it's a big organization. I know some great people at District 2, but I've met some that I would agree with you on. So we have to go through the right channels, through the right people. I've got some folks I worked with down in Reading that were super helpful in trying to get some funding, becoming partners in the project and delivering it. So they've also come a long way. Caltrans 10 years ago, 15, 20 years ago, when I started my career, I hope there's nobody from Caltrans here. They obstructed a lot of what we were trying to do, and now they've really, it's changed quite a bit. So
Okay,
I'd be optimistic about that.
Okay, great.
Maybe for next time we get together, because if you've only been here 3 days, you may not know, but I'd like to know what toxins are left, because the city was given a big bag of poo when Roseburg left. And they've been working really hard over the last 2 decades that I know of to try to get this thing turned around. So I'd like to know, there's some spots that can't have homes and things on them, and I'd like to know where those are, and that's probably where the parks are going to be. But so I'd like to see bike trails in the area, walking trails, and of course that it all connects to downtown. But it's very difficult right now to be on a bike. It's dangerous, the roads are bad, and the 89 coming across from the south is going to the west is very dangerous. I-5 gets a ton of musicians going up and down, and it would be really awesome if they could stop in for a night's sleep and maybe play a gig. I'd love to see dog-friendly areas, so with the bike paths that dogs are allowed, and that if we have a dog park down there, that it's actually cared for, and that there's poo bags out and places to throw that away, because our city park right now, no offense, but it's very limited. I'd like to see some tent camping somewhere for people that don't have, massive RVs that cost $200,000. But if we do have an RV park, I'd like it to be electrified so that we're not listening to generators, and maybe some rules in there where I was out in May and I had to stay at an RV park, and oh my God, these people have LED lights on, lit up outside all damn night long. So we don't want any of that. At least I don't. Yeah, I'd like to see the stars, and I think people that come here would like to too. I'd love to see some kind of senior housing and tiny home village type of thing. If we have maybe even an elder care place that you could have a memory care or something, because people just don't have that here. And if you're single and don't have family, and you might need a place to go instead of wandering the streets.
These are great.
Yeah.
Great idea.
So a tiny home village is kind of similar to the bungalows that you showed, except that technically they're movable, but they would tend to not be. And we have our own ordinance here that we're crafting and recrafting. So a space for that, so that when people come, they go, oh, look at that, isn't that cool? And they take those ideas home. And then a food truck space.
Yeah. Food truck
so
park.
that we could bring food trucks in. Yeah. Maybe maybe close to the music area.
Those are cool, the food truck parks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Before you go on, John wants to point out the blue areas. We
Yeah,
can't, we
so-
can't touch those. Those are.
I think we can put a commercial or industrial use on those. Someone correct me at the city. But you cannot put housing, essentially what planners call a habitation use. So hotel, camping, RV, or housing on the blue, they're barely blue on the screen, LUC or land use covenant areas. And they're all the same. So those are the areas where there, I think, maybe just enough toxicity that you're safe if you're visiting the site or spending time on it, but you don't want plumbing into housing there. And what's interesting is those are also the least developable areas. We drove through LUC2 yesterday and almost got our Mazda stuck. There is ruins from some of the mill still there. They can be part of a visual feature that may or may not be incorporated, art installation. But those are the areas where there's no housing. The rest of it has been scraped. My understanding is the topsoil has been removed, bagged, hauled to a dump or processing facility elsewhere. The scientific details of that process I'm not familiar with, but that my understanding is the Superfund cleanup process has rendered the site safe, all of these areas.
And
Except for the blue areas?
Except for the blue areas, but again, if you're visiting the site or you have a job on the site, they're safe.
the other thing we'd point out is there are certain areas that you just can't develop because they're natural drainage areas, or
Yeah.
let's say natural ponds, so you don't want to interrupt that. So not all the land is just developable anyway.
So this LUC, Land Use Covenant Area 1, has an artesian well, a drainage area that's dammed up, so it's an ephemeral or seasonal pond. There's talk and some initial concepts that somebody working with the city developed that suggested that's a park space with a pond that may be permanent or seasonal. Right now, it's got a grove of aspens growing in the bottom of it. Stormwater drainage could end up there. So that has some pretty dense trees around it with views right into Mount Shasta. So what a great park space that could be. Maybe the city's new visitor center is adjacent to that as a kind of junction with the developed part of town. So some of the site planning would really incorporate these spaces in a smart way.
Who has control?
He's got it.
Okay, I'm John Thompson. I'm here representing the Mount Shasta Trail Association, and we, just in the last few weeks, completed the Pioneer Trailhead,
Yes.
which is a very temporary. We know it's going to move as the development goes out there, but we just for the parking area, we just put a layer of gravel down there. The map kiosks are set in gravel; they're not concreted in. The trail itself, we just utilized, on the city land, just utilized an existing forest road as opposed to building a new trail. But so the idea is, hey, we've got a license to be there. We want to work with, whoever the developer is. And, when the developer's out there doing the final grading for his site work, he can rebuild the trail in 30 seconds with the equipment he's going to have on site. So it's, yes. So
Yeah,
We walked on that trail. It was very nice.
Oh yeah, no, that trail there will go all the way up to the Vista Point on the mountain. So it's like a 2,000-foot vert. That particular trail.
Oh, well, we didn't do all of that.
And so the Gateway Trail System we're finishing it up this year next. It's going to end up with about 60 miles of multi-purpose trail.
Oh my goodness.
And so, it's primarily in concert with the Forest Service, because most of the trail network is on Forest Service land. There's this one little piece that's on the city land at the south end of town. So, gonna rest.
Hi, I'm Anastasia Sprout. I just want to thank you so much for all the work you put in a very short period of time, it sounds like, adding on to what's come before. It's really exciting to see these plans. So I'm curious, I think you didn't name the developer on purpose, I'm guessing. Is that
Are we
correct?
allowed to mention the developer? Or?
Okay.
It's John Bryan Power.
John Bryan Power. Okay.
Only responds to the SLA.
Okay. Thank you so much. And so more to come. So thank you.
Hi there, Jack Trout, Mount Shasta resident. This is a really interesting project because, you know, if you think about it, this is the first Mount Shasta exit coming into town. This is very important for our community, our town, in regards to people that are coming from the Bay Area in Los Angeles. This is going to be their first impression of our town. So I look at areas in towns like Ashland, yeah? They don't want to be like us, but I'd like to be a little bit more like them because they are a very progressive community that has done it right, if you think about it. You know, with the Shakespeare and the way that they have the one-way streets that go through the town, the classy aesthetic nuances that brings people to their town and makes them realize, hey, what a great place. I feel better about myself when I'm in that town, right? Yeah. And if you think about it, you know, we've had some great things happen in this area. In 1999, we had the string cheese incident up at the Mount Shasta Ski Park before they were popular. They went off after they left here and became a worldwide sensation. Same with Billy Strings. But what I think would be great is to have a multi-use amphitheater there where we not only used it for occasional concerts, okay, but something similar to what the Cascade Theater does in Reading. And then we also entice the Oregon Shakespeare Festival to bring their people down. I've already talked to them about, to bring their tours here. Now they have a $42 million budget. Yeah. They've won 2 Tony Awards. I don't know if people know that.
I do.
They are so famous in the theatrical world in New York and that they attract shows from there that actually aren't with the theater. And it spawns prop building and acting and this synergy, this feeling of living in Ashland, you know? And I'd love to see that partially be brought here, of course, with trails, with housing that's badly needed, most likely on that east side. And then also, we need something in this town that personifies Mount Shasta. We need something like Reading has. It could be anything. Reading, darn that Reading, they got that sundial bridge. I'm jealous, right? So we take a little bit of each area that warms your heart and you bring it to the area. But I think that we need to change a little bit as a community. We need to be a little bit more kind of acting, a little bit more diversified. I mean, we're going to have to bite our tongue a little bit because we're going to need to bring some things into the area. That property needs to be developed. But with doing it right and having it with our class, you know, we've got a great thing here and we can build on it. I love the amphitheater.
They do
I got back there first, and then I'll come back to you guys.
They do tours. They do little troops. Oh, that doesn't matter.
Hi, I am Patricia Carreras. I live here in Mount Shasta. I first want to say what you put together is really incredibly exciting. If you are able to achieve the majority of what you've shown us up there, it's gonna make our community that much better and stronger. I'm very curious to know how percentage-wise, how much housing you might be looking at compared to development. And particularly, there are a group of us that are very interested in tiny houses. And I know you mentioned that, and you mentioned maybe senior housing. Some of these tiny houses are amazing for seniors who are ready to downsize, and having a little community area where the seniors can kind of be together, where we can support each other, where we can check in on each other, and be able to walk out the door and walk to some of these cool amenities. That's an amazing thing. I would really urge you to consider at least putting in a couple of maybe model tiny homes, so people can get a sense of what they are. Even if there's people like me who would be willing to make the step and get a tiny house and open it up on occasion so visitors can come in and see what tiny house living is all about. But if when you're developing it, you can make it so it's a little bit easier for us to step into the property, and I know you're going to have utilities in place for everything else, so we don't have to start from ground in our golden years trying to make this happen. That would be just an amazingly lovely thing. So I would urge you to consider that, and also consider, as much as you're able to, making this whole project ADA compliant. You may notice we are very multi-generational in this community, which I adore, but when you also look around, you notice there's a pretty good senior population here. So having access to this, things like cobblestone pathways are beautiful, but for people with mobility issues, it's very difficult. So if you could just look at some of those things with maybe seniors in mind, maybe you can create something that's a little more tourist friendly, but also have alternate paths that make it easy for seniors to get around too. Because having these parkways, having these businesses, having a community center, it would be an absolutely lovely thing. But tiny houses is something this community is making a commitment to. We've been working very hard on the ordinances. The ordinance we have drafted right now is probably the best in the country, to be honest with you. We've been working very hard on it. There are other communities that are looking to us as a model for what they want to do in their communities. So if we can include that in, that's just another feather in our cap that makes us stand out above and beyond what everybody else has. So do you have an idea of how many houses as opposed to businesses you might be looking at, percentage-wise?
Tricia, they've given me that tough job. I'm the market analysis person, and I have to come up with a demand analysis for how much of that we can, let's give it a 20-year horizon, how much of it we can plan on the site, meet your community needs. But at the same time, we've all got this other push and pull of this city has goals of meeting their revenue source needs, so there's probably going to be a blend of visitor-oriented uses and primary residence. But at the same time, you don't want to sit there with a land that takes 50 years to absorb all the homes and that kind of thing. So I am so excited that your community is receptive to tiny homes. I cannot tell you how many small communities I come into and say, would you please look at small cottage homes under 1,000 square feet and where they own the land underneath and they're permanent residents? You have so many communities that resist this. I can't even tell you how excited to be looking at that alternative for your community.
Thank you.
Okay, if I dovetail on that? Okay, thanks. Hi, Louise Deerfield, and hi, beloved community fellow citizens. How you doing? I wanted to dovetail a bit on what Patricia brought forward, and in your economic analysis, I would really encourage you to look at what the incomes are here of different age levels, and then correlate that really directly into the housing needed and how to connect those two things.
We totally agree with you, and
Great.
we've already spent some preliminary time looking at that. You do have an unusual population base. You have a median income that's more in the 50s, you have an older segment, and as someone who's getting more and more mature myself, I understand those kinds of needs. And you also have a tremendous lack of housing that's within rental and ownership that meets those affordability range. I'm very familiar with your median incomes, your average incomes, and so it becomes a challenge. Yeah, we understand it.
Yeah, and we also want to support the youth in coming up, or younger people, younger families.
And with the youth, you're talking about two issues. It's not just housing. Is there some employment for them as well?
Absolutely.
And I think something I think about when we go through this topic of affordability, alignment with salaries in the community is we're talking also about bringing in people, and we have to be careful about how much of that impacts the availability of that resource for the people that are already here, whether it shifts the ground under their feet. And so having multiple product types is one defense against that.
And the other thing is we're talking with the city and others of how do we meet the needs of the community with primary home ownership first, right? Because we also understand you've been very badly impacted with a lot of second home ownership, and therefore that's taken a lot of housing out of the market. So there are ways to get over this, and we're looking at that creatively for you.
Thank you. One other thing, just a broad brushstroke pitch for green building, natural building, and I have a colleague here who can go more deeply into that, and I hope he'll stand up a little later. Evan.
Hello. When I first moved here, or just before I moved here in 1988, I used to put on very large festivals and conference centers at the LA Convention Center, the Shrine Auditorium, the Civic Auditorium in San Francisco. Ooh. I came up here, and after being up here a few years, I had a bunch of organizations that I actually sat on some board of directors, and I wanted to do conferences up here. Huh. And I could not find a place that would handle more than 200 people at a time with no breakout rooms. So the idea of doing a small conference center, 800 seats, with and one side of the conference center being glazed onto an atrium that looks on the mountain. We need to incorporate a old-timey railroad station there. We have the railroad there. We have just the one Amtrak, but Amtrak would probably be open to making this a stop. We are on the I-5 corridor between all the musicians coming up and down, that they would play here. It could be indoors, it doesn't have to be outdoors. We can have a causeway going under South Mount Shasta Boulevard to whatever we do on the east side, whether it's an extra hotel space. We definitely need a transit hub coming in and out to downtown. There's probably a way to do a bike path, not up South Mount Shasta Boulevard, but up through the orchard coming out somewhere around Lake Street. And this would be the only convention center in California that's train linked. Younger people are taking the train more. The hotels would be full. We do a convention, you get people staying 3, 4, 5 nights in a row. That's a big jump to the economy. There could be booths. The businesses can be represented downtown, from downtown there. There's a bunch of things there. So the idea of a conference center.
Okay. Hey, a favor, can you leave your business card with the cocoa over here? Thank you.
All right. So, I know. I got 2 back here, and then I'm working my way forward.
All right. We'll make sure this doesn't start screeching. Okay, there we go. My name is Mark Rogers. I'm a resident here. I grew up in El Dorado County in South Lake Tahoe. So I watched how South Lake Tahoe, that's me right here, developed from the early 90s through until 2020, and saw the things they did right and a lot of things they did wrong, and kind of some of the nightmare scenarios that it became for the locals that kind of forced them out. And Mount Shasta right now is a growing, expanding mountain community. One of the things I think as a community, and especially developers, we have to realize is there's two reasons people come to Mount Shasta. One is for the mountain, to hike, to ski, to camp, to participate in the outdoor activities. And the second is the sacred significance of the mountain. It's been sacred for 20,000 years. So one of my things that I will always suggest first is that we donate the land back to the tribal communities and allow them to manage the land how they see fit in conjunction with the city, instead of going for the kind of American capitalistic, let's build all of this stuff and all these things. This land was sacred to people long before we got here. And one of the things we as a community do really well is recognize that. And so I know donating is probably not going to happen, but one of the things I would love to see is there's no representation of the tribes up here.
Yeah.
And it's their land before they got here. They were the ones tending it, taking care of it, and they need some kind of representation. So whether it's a native facility or just an art feature, something that explains the history and the impact and the sacredness of this area is really important. Along that note, no square buildings. As you called them, what was it? The retail village is a horrible idea for up here. That's like Folsom in Sacramento. They did a retail village that is supposed to be walkable and has boutique shops and things like that, and it's horrible. Having lived in Cameron Park and Folsom, I can attest that it works for some things, it's horrible in many, and up here, just no square buildings. The lighting, I would suggest actually as an entire town, going back to sodium halogen, which is that nice soft orange light. If you grew up in the 90s and the snowfall and it just glowed and it was really soft and wasn't this harsh. I know it's not as good for facial recognition, which is why we switched to LEDs, but as a town, that's something we might want to consider going back to because that's beautiful. Also with the housing, no HOAs. I've never heard anything good about HOAs. So just as a note, like if you're gonna own your home, you own your home, and you don't have to deal, you have to deal with your neighbors, but not in an HOA fashion. That's just miserable. As a younger person looking to buy a home up here, I would not participate in an HOA. Yeah, keeping rental companies out. I know this is an investment opportunity, and with the special inclusion zones, we're gonna get investors who are looking to have their rental companies come in and manage these sites. That's if it's going to be rental, it needs to be managed within the community so that money isn't extracted and it's kept within the community and builds the net worth of the community. Let's see. And most conference centers and most of the conferences that happen here need a fireplace outside because it is a sacred site, and so people are looking to do sacred ceremonies here on the mountain, whether that's participating in music venues or rituals held by community members. I know there's a lot of people who do retreats up here and have expressed that there's not really a retreat center that's capable of facilitating that the sacred practices that are people want to do now. The business incubator idea is really cool. I don't know, Square, Starbucks, Flexing. Oh, and the houses, the small, backyards, because just living inside of a box is miserable.
Small backyard.
Small backyards. Okay.
All right, who's next? Up next row up.
They're saying don't not include small backyards. No, don't skip that.
Hi, my name is Karen Bauer. And first of all, I'm going to say I'm a theater major. I've worked backstage for 20 some odd years, so I love the idea of having performing arts. Having an amphitheater and an outdoor space, we have weather. I think outdoor space like that when even Ashland turned around and made a cover for their outside amphitheater. So you may have to consider some way of having a cover for it. My other concern too for these tiny houses, I see that they have the mini splits, and I love my mini split. But when there's a power outage, we get power outages when there's a fire. We get power outages when there's 5 feet of snow. We need to maybe have an alternative kind of electricity for this village. Solar, wind, whatever kind of alternative energy you can have for everybody. So therefore, when there is a power outage, you don't have 1,000 people freezing their butts off. And then the one I kind of reiterate what you said. Oh, sorry. To reiterate, you said about first time or people just owning and living. Please make it so nobody could come up, buy a place, own it for a year, turn around and sell it for more. Yeah. Have it to some kind of a rule, law, whatever you have in the agreement, in your contracts, that they have to be living and staying and not turning around. And because that's what happens here, is people turn around and buy it and then turn around and sell it for a lot more. So, all right, thank you.
This row.
You don't have to do that. You just make sure the primary home.
So, Leonard Nordstrom. I have a question. So, today is really, I guess.
Can you stand up? I'm having a hard time here.
Okay, so thank you. So my question is really about what happens after the final plan is published come November. So what's going to happen at that point? What's it going to be like to pivot from a paper plan to getting streets, put in, utilities put in? Who's going to manage that, and what's the expectation of a time frame between the final plan come November, give or take, to we actually see some progress on this site? Thank you.
There are a few steps that would happen before we pivot to dirt moving. One of those is an entitlements process where the subdivision of the site, the reparcelization is approved with a document that is part of or tied to a development agreement. And that can take 6 months to a year. You also have to go through the California CEQA process. Now, for master plans that include infill housing or housing adjacent to a community, affordable housing, sometimes that CEQA process can be significantly streamlined. I just saw that in 2 master plans where affordable housing made that document much shorter. And then after that, you probably have to have the city prepare some of the in-ground infrastructure, the portion that it contributes to the project. That also helps the developer get their portion in as well. So mains, infrastructure upgrades, anything that might have to precede it on Shasta Boulevard, and that would probably be another year. So 2 to 3 years after this document is finished, you have more design, more planning, but it becomes more concrete in that sense. You're dealing with CAD drawings at that point and bid processes. Thereafter, Kim, is there anything you want to add to that, or?
No, that's not right.
Yeah.
So to reiterate, this is day one. This is step one. This is us trying to wrap our arms around what we could do. We're going to have to refine this over the next few months, over the next few years, get all our ducks in a row, get all our documentation done. Nothing's going to happen overnight, but it starts today.
That's one of the benefits of having a developer selected for, through the Surplus Land Act process. there's a developer interested and tied to this project and is working as a stakeholder. So that accelerates that. And they are going to have to seek out, subcontractors that will develop the housing portion or any retail portion. But they are better prepared with a document like this to do that outreach. And when it's tied to an economic study like Linda's, it's really saleable. So this is about as fast as it could go. Yeah.
Hello, I'm very, very pleased at everything I've heard today. And this is
Drive safe.
This is Mount Shasta at its best right here. I was in the nomadic profession of city management. I just happened over my career to have lucked out and become sort of a specialist in small, rural, and/or tourist-based quality of life communities. I was taken by the reference to Carpinteria earlier. That's my second favorite city. This is my favorite city. This is why I retired here. But each of them had their own version of what we're talking about tonight. When I moved to Carpinteria, I went there to the South Coast Santa Barbara market from the San Joaquin Valley market. That was sticker shock. But it was eased a bit because they were just completing planning a development of about 40 homes, beautifully designed, small yards, some bigger than others, but they were built in a way you could have an entry-level home, 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, with the framed upstairs, if and when you get to a point in your life and your family and your income to want to build that. It was framed and plumbed, ready to go when you're ready to build it and expand. Right. And some of the larger version houses they had is the 2 to 3 models. You could do the same with adding bedrooms. They were framed, ready to go, and built into the land that was as it was planned and developed. The tiny home concept is also very, very valuable, and certainly encouraging, but what this is kind of was a tiny home that could grow into a larger home without having to relocate or be in some way totally modified. And it really helped to create a diverse community as well of people of different income groups, family or not, seniors, childless couples. It was a real variety of opportunities that would otherwise not have been available in one of the nation's highest and most difficult markets for housing. And the city of Calistoga was also one of my venues for a while. They have another, not planning development, but essentially nice single-family homes, really, really well-developed and attractive community neighborhood, self-contained, that were based on your eligibility by income level. And to get to the issue of coming in, buying a home here, moving out a year later with major profits, you couldn't do that there. And when I was there, we actually had a couple of families who moved away and others came in, and we went through another process of requiring people to apply, and those who are most eligible would be able to still buy that home for an affordable price. So there are techniques, there are manners in which things can occur to meet all those issues, even in some of the most challenging housing environments with respect to cost and affordability. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you.
I'm John Brennan. I've lived here since Thursday. You know, as you work with us, you'll find a lot of us have mud on our boots and stickers in our socks. And that's why we're here. That's what we do. We enjoy our land. I have some concerns about what's been presented so far, concerns that envisions downtown being victimized by this new concept at the end of the east end of the metropolitan area here. So I think we have to be very careful of thinking this through so that we do not have an empty downtown. It's tough enough to do business here, as many people know. And I think this master plan that is being developed must include tiny homes, both for starter-up families and for the elderly people who wish to downsize. Any homes and residential homes that are built here have to be built under the zoning, which precludes them from becoming B&Bs, overnight short-term rentals. I think that's imperative to have in the zoning in the bigger picture. This is the best place I've ever lived. And I find it hard to see a way that we can make it better, but change happens. We've had to change our name 3 times in history, at least. So anyway, let's be real careful about encompassing all views in what we're about to be doing here. Thank you.
As someone who's a national expert on retail, this is one of top of my concern, because you have some really positive things that have just happened in the last 5-6 years in your downtown. You do not want to, whatever happens on the landing should not upset some really nice, very respectful entrepreneurial activities that are happening downtown. We see them as complementary. First of all, their distance from the landing to downtown is nothing. It is short. It is easy to get there. I mean, it's practically bikeable distance, and if you don't bike and you drive it, it's nothing. So we see the connectivity. You don't want to replace on the landing what you already have downtown. So in fact, to be realistic, you can't. Okay, you just can't do that. It's not even in our purview. Now, before we leave, I'm gonna try to ask to get some other perspectives from you, and this is the request of the developers, John and Brian Powers. What they would like to hear from you is, what do you like most about the community, and what would, like if you had friends and relatives and you tell them what is great about coming here, they wanted to hear that from you, so they can, whatever is done there, they can reflect that. Is that possible?
Hi. Yeah. I'm Cindy Joy, I'm a resident here, and thank you so much for all of these ideas. I do want to say what you presented, I really am passionate about the small business incubator spaces, places where people can try out small businesses. I've seen in other areas where they would have like a mercado, kind of either a section that people can have rent out like booths and have their crafts, so to support the local artists in the areas. Things that would have a space for shared tools and resources for the community, like like an artist hub, a place where they can get use of equipment that they couldn't pay for on their own, that kind of thing. And huge fan of the tiny village, the tiny house village, and residencies that people can own at an affordable rate. And I think those were the biggest things, was mostly like incubator spaces. Something that I would also like to see is the individual studio commercial spaces for people who are starting the small businesses.
May I ask if there's an interest in the community for many businesses for live workspaces, where you have your own business downstairs and live above? Have you heard of any interest in this?
There's one.
There it is. Okay.
All right.
The gentleman up front. Okay.
Be right back. I'm going row by row, and then I'm going to start at the back and move forward here.
Okay. Thanks. My name's Shanti Cliff, and I appreciate everything you've said here. And I'm interested in having a bigger music venue, and other people have spoken to that. And you mentioned this room, but it needs to be much bigger than this room, and also this room has not good sound. So I know bands like to come here and it's like, sorry, I'd rent that out, but we really need a good place with good sound for performances. And big, because there are a lot of bands coming down through, and they love Mount Shasta.
Yeah, that's it. Rosalind, I live here in Mount Shasta. And years ago, we were put on water restriction. And so when you're looking at building houses and hotels, and you need to base that on how much water do we have, how much sewer system space can be given to this project. We just can't build and build and build because the water is not unlimited here. And we have lost our retirement homes, our senior centers, and so people are having to go up into Oregon or down to Redding. And so that is a real lack around here, is supportive living environments. And the other thing that would be nice to see is to have a new fire department down at the landing, and that would open up that whole space, and maybe even the city offices move down there, and then all of the downtown could actually be utilized for businesses instead of using it for the government. And years ago, fire department have come in and said that it's not adequate. So that would be the other project that I think the city should look at.
In a brainstorming session yesterday, we had heard about some of those concerns and what an excellent piece of land they're sitting on. So is there a way to synergize with downtown, enhance downtown by having the landing absorb some or all of that in a long-term plan? So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, and we also heard that there was a need for the fire department to have bigger space, a need by the police department to have bigger space. So the city seems to be quite concerned in incorporating these ideas, which we think would be great for the landing.
It's sort of funny. You're really supporting downtown when the landing is absorbing some of those government functions to unlock that land in downtown. So it's got multiple ways to help.
On behalf of the city, this was one of the first things we mentioned was a unified fire police station, because we recognize that as prime real estate on the corner of Mount Shasta Boulevard and Lake Street. Let's put businesses in there. Let's move the government down here. Let's get a chamber where people can actually come in and council can sit and we can hear them, right? Where it's thing. So those things, so on behalf of the city, those were brought up to the developers right off the bat too, is let's help with the downtown businesses, bring things in there, let's help our facilities, and so much. So yeah, so I'm glad that you're supporting that, the same thing as we're talking to here. So I'm gonna finish the front row, I'm gonna go back and work my way back down, okay?
Hi, Tim Stearns. I like the presentation. I hope that it's going to be part of the city website and made readily available. I think the Powers have done a great job. I love the comments and suggestions that folks here have made. Eons ago, just before COVID, our Downtown Enhancement Committee, of which I was a member, was planning to create a shuttle service that would go between the landing and the downtown. So I was delighted to hear Todd talking about something like that, and I think that would bring the two areas that much closer together. As a member of city council in the past, our city council made a commitment to the residents of Mount Shasta that anything that was developed on the landing would complement
Correct.
and not compete
Right.
with the downtown. And I hear you're saying that same sort of thing.
Yeah.
You've incorporated a number of the ideas that, I can tell that you've incorporated a number of the ideas that we've been talking about now for 20 or 30 years. So thank you so much. There's one more thing, two more things that I think are very important, at least to me. One thing we've talked about in the past, at least some of us, was the possibility of using a small part of the east side for a residential community land trust, a residential community land trust, where people could have starter homes, and then it would be basically purchase restricted, sale restricted, so they don't sell it for fair market value.
Yeah, we've been discussing the same thing, of some way to ensure that people who live here, or that primary home people, are the ones who are buying it. What you don't want happening are outsiders buying it as a second home and renting it out.
Exactly,
That defeats the whole purpose.
Yeah. We have for a long time talked about the need to bring young families to Mount Shasta. Either with young kids or no kids yet, but to have kids, so that we can, over time, slowly grow the population from the population that is now. We took a survey maybe 8 or 10 years ago. At that point in time, I think most of the answers that we got indicated people would feel comfortable with growing to maybe 5,000 people. But still keeping it small, keeping it Mount Shasta, but bringing in more people that would support the businesses and more young people for schools and a all generations community.
Well, thank you very much. This is helpful.
Well, thank you for this lovely presentation this evening. Just for clarity on this map, can you show me where the train goes through?
Oh, sure. You want to show them with the train?
The train, and again, this side of the map is north. This is east, so we've rotated the map. Here's the 5 freeway.
Yeah.
The train is running through...
No, go down. It's that thing.
It is this line, yeah.
It is right there.
See it.
And the green area on the other side of it is just open. Okay. And that green area is open land?
Yes, that's undeveloped
That's
right
not
now.
part of the land?
Yes.
Great. All right. Well, I think that there have been a lot of marvelous ideas here. I see this as a mix, that it's a mix of commercial use and residential use for Mount Shasta. We have to have some commercial development to help bring in the revenue that the town needs. It's kind of a given in my mind. We just have to have it managed so it doesn't look like a strip mall.
Yeah. Right. We agree with you.
We don't want a strip mall. And having some kind of a conference center, a space for city council meetings, for community meetings, for the council, having a good space with good acoustics. You mentioned an outdoor amphitheater for like 100 to 300 people. I think that that's an underestimate of the number of people that you could serve. We had a free concert in the park Sunday night that had, how many hundred people, do you know, at the park Sunday? How many? There were 300 to 500 people in our park on a Sunday. Yeah. So the other thing that I think would be important, and of course this is my personal thing, is something in terms of an art center where people could come. We've talked about this some, to learn or to do classes. We have very little opportunity for extended learning here in Mount Shasta. I don't know if there could be a coordination with our College of the Siskiyou and Weed, but if they could have a space where they could do classes here, arts and crafts, or, you know, Ashland has OSHA, which is senior learning, that would be amazing. It would really add to the interest, and it would spike interest, and people would actually come for this. So I'm thinking people coming in for events. You've got the bike trails, a bike shop, bike rentals. The possibilities are more than the space can allow, that much we know. But I think with the planning and more discussion, we can see that we serve our community as well as the people that want to come visit here, because both are important.
Right.
And develop something that's beautiful and that we're all really proud of. Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, everybody. My name's Evan Drake. I'm a resident of Mount Shasta and a director at the Siskiyou Housing Alliance. Just first off, wanted to support the recently proposed residential community land trust use for the residential section, particularly for affordable units. Residential community land trusts can really help ameliorate issues in cities that have had housing crises and housing supply issues in perpetuity, so forever. And I think that this would be a really good opportunity to make an investment in the community's housing stock that is more than just stock. It's community, it's protected, it's insured for the future to come. A couple more thoughts on affordability, specifically about housing. I'm curious if the city has any leverage in extending the affordability covenants that are typically associated with below market rate housing development. You know, typically maybe 40, 50 years, and then it's back on the market and no longer, you know, quote, affordable. So, you know, if there's a way of getting those, you know, 70 years, 100 years, I just feel like that makes sense, and we have the ability to discuss that now, and we won't again. Another way of protecting the affordability long-term is just in the way that the houses are built. So smaller houses, tiny homes for sure, it's naturally just inherently more affordable because it's smaller. So that's another way of doing it, and I think that works really well too. And I'd like to see perhaps some tiny houses, and certainly small bungalows were mentioned. I can appreciate a bungalow. Under 1,000 square feet makes sense to me these days. So.
Yeah. Would you mind leaving your card as well?
Sure, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Couple more things. Just on environmental factors, and this applies to not just the housing, but also the commercial and light industrial proposed types. Especially with regard to those, the heat island effect is really real for impermeable flat work mixed with really tall walls that are getting a bunch of solar gain in the day and reflecting against asphalt and creating actually very unhealthy living environments for people. So finding ways to shade and retain solar gain, you know, either through architecture or through solar arrays over parking lots, and then permeable flat work that can accept moisture from, you know, rain could help with certain runoff issues, but also is just, I think it's necessary. Just we shouldn't be, you know, paving vast swaths of land anymore. Natural surfaces, that, you know, flagstone, ADA compliance. I think that there can be some tension between these ideas, but it can be done. Concrete can be, you know, formed in independent sections, which allows for permeability, and it's still, you know, completely flat and stable. And then for runoff concerns, I like the idea of ponds, of surfacing water, and of finding ways to redirect runoff into the earth. And last thing, this was mentioned by Luis earlier, and that's just that we really, I think, should take a hard look at the structure and the building types that we're building in terms of, naturally it's going to tend toward light frame construction and maybe fire resistant siding, but I wonder if we could do a little better and build, integrally fire resistant walls that are solid, such as hempcrete or aerated concrete, or even in some cases straw bale and rammed earth and such things. That's all I wrote down. Thanks again. I really appreciate the scale of everything. I can see that it's not intended to blow up into some huge development, and I like where it's headed. So thank you guys for your work.
Yeah. That's cute.
One in front again. One behind you.
Hey, thank you. Hello. My name is Noah Mathwig. I'm 23 years old. I've lived here my entire life. So I think I might be the youngest person in the room. So a couple simple, quick ideas from the young guy. And I hate public speaking, so bear with me. First things first, I love this town more than I can explain. I love the community. Again, I love it here. I don't plan to leave anytime soon. Couple things I want to piggyback on. Huge fan of the pond idea. Definitely a big fan of the trail network coming through around, through town somehow. I don't know. The idea of a trail that goes from City Park all the way on the north side through the south side is awesome. Huh? Oh, right. Yeah, I forget where I'm at. I'm here. Yeah. Some kind of trail network that goes to and from for running, biking. I love the idea of maybe like a two-way bike lane. I don't know if we have enough bike travel for that, but something about that really makes me happy. Yeah, let's see what else. Huge fan of the food truck idea, food truck situation. And yeah, that covers that. So for the multi-use area, a very simple touch that I think could have a big impact on the kind of resort feel would be a free-to-use bike washing station. With the new trailhead coming down from there, the idea of rolling in after a great shuttle with your friends to rinse off your bike and then maybe have a cold beer at a brewery or something sounds really appealing.
That's clever.
Bikeries.
Hey, thanks, right on. And then another idea for the multi-use system is an indoor climbing gym. Yeah, same. I think it would really be super cohesive with the whole vibe of the multi-use area. I don't know if anybody remembers the Shasta base camp. I was a huge fan of that store, so if we could have something similar to that in that area, I think that'd be a great addition. It's also really cheap and fun, for people that are from out of town or something. I know I can vouch for a lot of my friends that would really love that. So something along the lines of that. And then in the lodging section of this whole plan, some kind of hostel. For my age range, travel has become increasingly difficult with the rising cost of gas, minimum wage not really moving, getting a hotel or traveling somewhere. It's nice to spend a night inside with a roof over your head, where you can get a bunk for like $20 or something. You know what I mean? A lot of people my age would definitely really appreciate that from traveling elsewhere. Yeah, PCT for sure.
Yeah, can you mention some examples you've liked in hostels?
Well, I personally haven't stayed at a hostel because again, Travel is just so expensive right now. I drive a
But-
V8. I bought a big truck before gas skyrocketed, so really unfortunate timing.
But I think what you're talking about is, and they're, maybe you've seen them, they're like very small, almost pod-like units, community,
yes. Very, very, it's a tiny footprint.
Yeah, it's a
this
tiny
would be a very
footprint.
small, footprint of the overall like lodging.
Yeah.
And connected to the PCT, Pacific Crest Trail.
Exactly,
users.
Yeah, it's a very creative idea.
Hikers looking for, I work at the 5th season in the Sportsman's Den, so we get PCT hikers coming in all the time, and they're like, oh man, I gotta get a shower at the KOA, and they're not sounding too excited about it. So, a place where like-minded individuals can hang out, sleep for cheap, get some food from a food truck, have a cold beer, climb a rock wall maybe. Just simple ideas. Oh, also, for the foliage within the area, if it could be native plant species, that would be super rad to see.
Of course.
Super low maintenance. We have tons of them here. Drought-resistant native plant species would be super rad to see. I think that's a small touch that would go a long way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I like the hostel idea.
Okay. My name is Lynn Michaelian, and I moved here in 2020 from San Francisco.
Oh.
And you wanted to know what people love about Mount Shasta.
Thank you.
Yeah, and so I think as a resident of the Bay Area previously, when people think of Mount Shasta, they just think of a magical place. Recreation, the lake is incredible, the hiking, the mountain is the main thing. It's just like sacred. But I've talked to people from all over the world who come here for the spiritual aspect of this place, because it just has a reputation as a spiritual place. They want to go to Panther Meadow and be where the spring is. They want to go up the mountain. They want to see Lemurians. There's all kinds of, we could have nonstop conferences all spring, summer, fall. If you look at the posters that are up there, all kinds of conferences. And the sad thing is there's no place to do it. We could have huge things with big, big speakers who would want to come here and talk about Pleiadians and, Bigfoot and all kinds of things. It's that kind of place. That's not what we residents think about necessarily, but visitors do. And when you're coming up from you just feel a difference. You feel the difference in the vibration immediately. Like you just feel this peace. Just a beautiful, beautiful feeling when you get here. And, that's the main thing. Not so much business. Business is great. And I think your ideas are fantastic. It's really exciting. But a conference center, the Amtrak, the whole thing with making it more accessible to have big meetings, big conferences and get-togethers from people from all over the world would love it. I've been to ones where people came from Taiwan, they love it. They talked about the sacredness of the water and everything. And that's the main thing about Mount Shasta that's different from, say, Weed or Wairika or anything else. It's very precious. And I think that's the main thing that I love about Mount Shasta.
Yeah.
So there
I'm
really
going to do
isn't much.
first times
Weddings
first,
are
and then I'll get
coming.
second-time talkers.
That's why we went there. Okay. And the weddings are outdoors.
Yeah.
My name is Betty Lees, and I've been in this area for over 50 years. And the main thing that I see is nobody's talked about the winter time. We get snow. Some years it's more than others. Are there ways that you're planning on removing the snow from the area that you have on the plan up there?
When I think as an urban designer about snow concern, one of the things I think about is when you're plowing, you need areas for that snow to go and to melt and drain. So that gets down to the granular site design. Are you accommodating the piles of snow that get pushed off of a pedestrian or parking area? You need to consider that in the site plan and how they melt and drain. Another one is sometimes the curb shape, a roll curb behaves a little better with even a small bobcat that's being used to clear a pedestrian way or a snowplow that's working the street. Those roll curbs are better. So things like that. Also, we were just talking about, an amphitheater, but also our performing arts center can be An enclosed roof you can use all year round. If you want an outdoor connection, does it have garage doors that open on one side? So it has an outdoor quality to it at certain times, but it's closable in the winter. So the building types matter as well. We think about commercial buildings and large flat roofs. When they get snow on them, they are a continuing runoff source. It's not just the rain event, it's also ongoing. So the drainage from those buildings need to be retained, detained, treated on site through 3-foot deep filtration layers. So it's another form of runoff. And also the wintertime functionality. How do you use an outdoor space around the holidays? How does it create a sense of gathering? So there's also a picturesque quality to winter here that is imageable and can be a part of the urban design visualization. So those are the things that come to mind just right off the bat.
So did I hear you say that the buildings would be flat?
No, not all
No, I'm
buildings.
saying the opposite.
But there are portions of buildings that are flat, and when they are, you have to think about how they drain, how they hold snow, and frankly, you don't want that many flat buildings in a place that gets 3 to 5 feet of snow in an event. So, yeah.
It'll be more than 3 or 5 feet.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
So we've heard.
I mean, I've lived here and I've worked on the highways doing chain control and working with the fellows out there trying to plow the roads. And we have people coming up here in their sandals and their light clothing, and they slide off into the median. Oh my gosh, no shovel, no nothing. And they're expecting help from all of us. We're out there trying to plow the snow. So I've seen the damages that the storm, I think it was in 70 something, that the buildings are gone. I mean, they were crushed. The same thing happened in Reading. We had one in '69 that demolished a couple of the buildings down there. So that's my main concern, is the snow and the water that runs off from the roofs and the land. And if it's where the logging place was, that's pretty low. Are they planning on having some way of removing the water?
Yes, that's a consideration when we've toured the site. It's got topography.
Okay.
And so how does it drain? And some of it's draining in the direction of the railroad, and so their right of way, that's not where you want to send the water. So it has to be run in a certain direction parallel to that. So there's a stormwater design that has to be a layer of this project.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because that's pretty low compared to the highway right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That was my main concern.
Thank you.
Okay, gonna get first-time speakers that haven't spoke before I get to the people that haven't to the second-term ones. So I'll start right here, and then I'm gonna move forward row for first-time speakers, and then I'll hit second-time speakers right after that.
Thank you. Johanna L. Torfer and Mount Shasta. Thank you, Johanna. I'm sorry I missed the presentation earlier. I was actually down in Reading because they have services there like FedEx that business services. So that's one of the things that I heard tonight, and I think that would be a really good use to have co-working spaces and a place where you can do business and do large copy jobs, and I think it would attract younger people as well as middle-aged to retired people, because everybody has, smaller businesses perhaps, and I think it would help attract people to our community if we have a space for actually producing income. As lovely as it is to just recreate here, people also have to be able to pay for food. I've been an advocate for tiny homes for 4 or 5 years now, and so I think that's a wonderful endeavor. I think co-living spaces, and what I mean by that is they're called 4x4s, or they're like shared common areas. So when my daughter lived in Eugene, they had apartments, but this could be scaled down so that it's you could do kind of like duplex size places, and they have 4 individual bedrooms, with private baths, but the kitchens, living rooms, and dining rooms are a shared space. Because if you think about it, I mean, how often do people use that? And we have a lot of seasonality to our community, and people come and need a job for the summer, you know, college kids or people moving to the area who want to explore, and it's a great way to get into, you know, it's a more affordable option.
Right.
And I like the idea that the younger gentleman was talking about. I love the climbing wall idea. I love the, the bike washing station. My family comes from a lot of bike riding, and my mom actually, she shut down Kenyatta Road in the Bay Area for bike traffic on the weekends. Anyway, I like the idea of the hostel, and one of the thoughts I had there is, I don't know if you're familiar with Costa Noa, but it's a resort on the California coast, between Santa Cruz and Monterey, and they offer different services. One of them is like tent. They're set up tents. We call it like glamping. And you can just kind of rent the place, kind of like a hostel, but it's like in a tent space, so it'd be kind of like, oh, we're in Mount Shasta, we're camping. But they're pre-set up, and they have electricity, and then you can get showers in a common area. I mentioned the co-working spaces because I think that's important. One of the things, because we have so many artists here, and I think it's difficult for people to always set up booths, but during like spring to fall, it would be nice to have a pre-set up booth area where vendors can easily come in and sell their wares and their unique things, because it takes a lot of effort to haul everything in all the time. And I don't know if you're aware, but there's an osprey nest over on South Mount Shasta Boulevard, on the old radio tower. An osprey, it's a bird.
Like a bird.
It's a bird. It flies. You did, awesome, yeah. And so I just want to make sure that whatever we do, that they're protected, because we want to like be respectful of our animal and bird friends. And I would be in favor of downward lighting, keeping building height to 25 feet height. I love the theater area aspect. I know people in the community who do theater, and I would love to see, them be able to, do their Shakespeare in a local venue. So I like that garage door with the outdoor-indoor thing, because we do have to think about the snow. I heard senior services. I thought that was great. I love the natural materials for drainage. And then this probably isn't part of your scope, but like sound is an issue here from Highway 5. And if there was any way to do a little bit of it's the Scenic Volcanic Legacy Byway. And I've personally been talking to like Caltrans for, I don't know, at least a decade now, to try to do like a rock berm area, because like a true sound wall would have graffiti, and we don't want that. That would be ugly. But because it's the natural, I'm butchering this, I always get it wrong, but it's the Volcanic Scenic Legacy Byway on Highway 5 here, and it goes like down 89. And up in Oregon, between Medford and Eagle Point, they did this like rock sound wall, and I just thought that would tie in really well to our natural environment here, and see if that works. I think there would be ways to build it that it could work, just between like 89 and like Lassen Bridge kind of thing. So, and I think that's all I had. Thank you.
That was a lot.
No, that's a good thing.
Just pass it on down the line.
My name is Steve Sattel,
Can you stand up and...
My name is Steve Sattel, and I think everybody's noticed that every fall we have a couple of feet of leaves around the community. And what I see is an opportunity for someone to collect those leaves, taking them to an area where they can be composted, broken down, turned into a soil, and in the meantime, set up a worm composter where you have the waste, food waste coming out of the supermarkets and the restaurants and the grocery stores, and create a high-value soil product that could be sold. Also, since you have the soil around, you might as well have some greenhouses and put in, have a localized food source. In the future, I think we'll probably need that more and more. Another idea that I have is to have some custom sewing and make a branded product based on Mount Shasta. And a real good example of a successful business like that is Cotopaxi. And I think that would do really well.
Yeah. We're having a hard time hearing up here. If you could just...
Okay. And then I have one other comment, and it's regarding the pond. Please don't line it in blue.
No, no, it's a natural drainage pond.
So my name is Jane Rothenberg. I've lived here about 40 years. And I don't know if this is even pertinent to what's going on there, because I don't have a visual of the area you're really talking about. I just know that the side area where the logging was, and years ago, there was actually a circus that came through town and was in that area, you remember. Anyway, I'm wondering, when you're developing these natural areas, how big they're going to be, and is it going to attract and affect the wildlife? And just like she was talking about the osprey, and if there's going to be more traffic coming through, are we going to have dead animals on the street? And again, I don't know. Is it a big enough area? Are you going to develop it so animals are going to be attracted, or is it going to be developed so animals are not attracted to coming into that area? So I guess that's my main concern, is the wildlife in the area. And I don't know if this is pertinent. I don't know if this is something that could happen, or anyway, I've seen those overpasses for animals over the highways. And I was thinking something like that, if that's even a concern.
Right. Introducing a wildlife overpass, well, that's something that would involve Caltrans and the highway. But you speak to the broader issue of, is there wildlife now on the site? Are they going to be affected? Are they going to be attracted or shying away from a newly developed site?
Right.
This is a whole chapter within what's called an impact statement mitigated negative declaration document that typically is the CEQA format document that would follow this. So this is the environmental study. It's a little shorter form, but even in that shorter form, you still have a section on biota, plants and animals that are living on the site. And it's a study that sends a biologist in boots onto the site to look for endangered species, species at risk, raptors, such as a falcon that's living on the site, and that's documented. And certain kinds of falcons, you have to build around them or accommodate them. If there's a nest, sometimes there's a margin of space you have to consider when you're developing that. So that year of time after our master plan, when there's a CEQA process, that's actually a detailed study for that. And it's not work I do directly, but it heartens me to know that it gets into such granularity when it comes to boots on the ground.
Yeah, that sounds good to me too.
Thanks. I'll stand.
Thank you.
You're welcome. One of the things that I love about Mount Shasta is the people. I've only been here 3 years, but in a lot of other places that I lived, people just thought I was crazy, the kinds of things that I would talk about. And there's like a different frequency here. That might sound weird, but the kind of people that I talk to here, we just have really different conversations that I really appreciate. And it's just amazing how many people that I'll meet, and it's like, wow, we're like thinking about like the same stuff. So the people aspect and just the conversations, whether it's at like grocery stores, at parks, is just out of this world compared to anywhere else that I've lived. So I really loved, like, you showed like an outdoor kitchen for a moment, but with any different space, just really thinking about like where people are going to congregate and conversate would be really lovely, please.
That's a great compliment for your community.
I get you.
Yeah, it seems that a lot of the public spaces we imagine or want to include in an urban plan are really going to succeed here more than any other place that we've worked, because people are drawn to those spaces, people activate them with their sense of self, and they're not forlorn. They're going to be inhabited by people who are bringing their ideas, their creativity. They're going to set up an impromptu sculpture and you know, sit next to it, or you know, promote their sense of spirituality. And so it's something I really love about working here already in 3 days. So definitely hearing what you're saying there.
Am I good here?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so my name is Bill Meese. I've been here almost 50 years, living close by here. And I had an experience, not a great experience, just an interesting one, down at that landing property about 4 or 5 years ago. I saw a great lenticular cloud, and I like to take pictures of them. And I realized some of these clouds disappear quickly, so I went to the landing, because that's where my car was, and I just went in, and I went to the, I guess it would be the southwest corner of the property, and turned around and looked up at the mountain, got a great picture, and realized, you know, I bet if they develop this place, they're going to miss the fact that the view from this corner is really exceptional. And so I would like to see some way for the community that lives there to have an open space in that corner where they can enjoy the view. Because oftentimes the view is ignored, believe it or not. Even though it's the thing that adds value monetarily to properties in the area. If you have a view, it's worth more. Well, that view from there is kind of priceless to that part of town. So I just recommend trying to incorporate that idea in your planning.
Yeah.
Any chance you can point to where you were?
There would be if I could see better, but my eyes are really bad. Okay, I'm coming up.
I'll tell her where it was, because it was where we were when we.
I think we walked there.
So when we walked this yesterday down on the bottom corner, and we were going up by the freeway, and you were looking for a spot to where you could find,
yes,
we could get to the freeway, and you guys all looked back at the mountain and went, "Whoa, this is a great view of the mountain."
Yeah.
That's where we were, down on that southwest corner, because we walked the entire property yesterday. And we pointed out all the different things. So that was one thing that they already noticed, was like, this is a great view from here, and they had a bunch of ideas come up. So, but thank you for reaffirming that with us here. I got one more newbie, and then another one, and then we're getting up in our time thing, but this is great. So I'm going to move on to our new people, and then I'll move back, and then we'll do further comments.
My name is Casey, and I know a lot of people here. Really excited for all of these ideas. I share that sentiment. I think what you guys put together looks great so far, and I'm excited to see the continued progress. I ride my bike down there through the landing about 4 or 5 times a week with my dog Larry. So I'm a little disappointed to lose our private bike riding area, but for the good of the community, I'm all for this. A couple cool things that I think would be great is like a shared kitchen space. I know one thing that makes it really difficult both for food trucks and restaurants in different ways. For food trucks in California, it can be difficult because you need, no matter what your truck is, you still need a commercial kitchen in which to prepare a lot of your stuff. And so I think some sort of shared commercial kitchen where people could rent out, whatever their needs are. Maybe they need 2 hours every other day, something like that, to then make it easier for more food trucks in the community. Similarly to that, the model where you have a commercial restaurant set up and maybe somebody doesn't think they can run that 7 days a week, but maybe they want to do like 2 nights a week, and you have kind of a restaurant that serves a variety of different chefs, or it's almost like a different restaurant each night, and then people take it upon themselves to kind of advertise and get people there, but utilizing that one commercial space, so it's not on an individual to open that. I think is a really cool idea. And then talking what Noah was talking about with the bike paths, I would love to see a bike path that goes all the way from here down there, but then all the way out to the lake, actually. So going under I-5 where the train goes under, if you're looking from the landing through that up to the left side, there's a road that's it's still under I-5. So rather than having to like drill a big hole under I-5 or put an overpass, I don't know if the train company would allow a bike path kind of as far away as possible from the railroad, but that would be awesome if it could continue out there and go all the way to the lake.
Yeah, we saw that side road.
Yeah, so right along that, I think is probably
right.
one of the only spots to get a bike path where it can be off the road.
But there's precedence for it I've seen
Cool.
across California, so.
Well, I'll trust in your expertise. Let's see. Oh, and then on that same note, whatever that bike path then looks like coming up to downtown, you mentioned a trolley or a tram of some sort. So it could be off of the main driving traffic road, and maybe if that tram is slow moving enough, it could kind of like share that multi-use path and be sort of off the main road, but between downtown and the tram doesn't have to move that fast if you're just sitting on it. As you said, it's not that far. But it would be nice for a lot of folks to have a way to sit and ride.
We also have some affordable alternatives for that tram.
Oh, cool.
It doesn't have to be an expensive big shuttle, it could be kind of a cool, right.
Sweet. And then the last thing was just kind of touching, it looks like Noah's taken off, but anyway, the climbing gym idea, I love that one. I've actually, in a past life, helped build and open a couple climbing gyms. And from doing that research, our community is really small to support that, but I think that there is a way with like a co-op model of a climbing gym that, and a friend actually out in Colorado has done this, where people have a membership and they can come in and swipe in to get in there so that it doesn't have to have staffing at all times, because that's kind of, once it's up and running, that's the main cost is the staffing there. And so a shared community model of a climbing gym, and then, it can be up to the members to set routes, do whatever in there. But anyway, I think all that stuff sounds great.
These people are creative.
Hi, my name's Pam Newman, and I've lived here for 30 years, and I've worked all over the North State, and maybe I'm the only one in the room. And I know you're here for development, and I guess that is important. But I moved here because it's slow, and it's quiet, and there isn't traffic. And I work all over the North State, and I live here because of those things. So while I see that it has to grow, and you certainly want to see it grow in that way, and many others do, I want to remind you that we need to take these steps carefully because, for instance, somebody mentioned the theater. Well, the Cascade Theater in Reading, which has a lot larger population, is struggling. And so is the one up in Ashland. And retail, Reading added a bunch of retail, but it's not full. And it's been sitting there for a long time, not full. So while these are all great ideas, are they really the world that we need right now? We should just think about that. When I first moved here, you'd go out on the trails and it was beautiful. And now I go out on the trails and there's trash almost every time I go somewhere. I was out at in McLeod swimming the other day. There was cases of beer bottles left behind. People enjoy the area, but they don't want to take care of it. And I care about that. And I bet you a lot of you do too. But with all of that growth and all of that retail and, how much do we really need anymore? This is a world that's maybe had a few too many things, and we've been a little spoiled. And so I'd like to see us take care of the area and find out ways that we can maybe grow a little. But if it's not in a way that takes care of us, then maybe we shouldn't do it. I don't know. So I'd like to hear all your ideas about what kind of retail you think is important for us to have nowadays.
We're not there yet.
Yeah.
We're just at the beginning.
Yeah.
First, I'll say that I'm so happy that Linda collaborates with us. It's such a privilege because she tells me, no, John, you can't have this, you can't have that, because of the sensitivity of retail to itself and the risk of cannibalization among businesses, and the specificity of types and differentiating between them. I mean, just Wednesday we were workshopping on some examples, and I said, well, isn't it like this? And she said, no, it's not like the example you're showing me, it's like that. So getting that specific helps ensure that you're not duplicating, and you're making sure it's economically viable by the numbers, and that's the kind of report she generates. And I would also say that when we are looking at retail, first thing is that any retail that really comes into the site is probably a much later phase after housing has arrived and been occupied already, and probably after a hotel has come as well. So it's a much later phase that depends on additional people coming to that site to be viable, rather than starting up and trying to create its own attraction, which can be cannibalistic. Did you have a comment, Linda?
Well, we have a phrase in the shopping center industry, and it goes like this: retail follows housing, not the other way around. And it's really critical. You don't want to create something where there isn't, a viable community already. There's another reason, too. Think about it from the business's standpoint. They don't want to be out there all by themselves. They want the synergy. But if you have a primary home village, tiny homes, all of this, they need kinds of services. There may be some, if you have a hotel that is meeting the visitor crowd, they need some services. But we're also looking at that entrepreneurial market. So it's not, again, the kind of typical retail you'd see here. Remember now, we're not talking massive shopping centers. We're not talking malls. We're not talking mega whatever's here.
Not an outlet center. Or
not
a lifestyle center.
We're curating it to your community needs. And so it's not anything mammoth. And so we're very sensitive to your concerns about growth. The other thing I'm unbelievably excited about, I've been working on affordable housing issues, it gives away, since probably the 1980s. And I cannot tell you how excited I am to have a community that really wants to get it done. We won't go into details, but unfortunately, sometimes you get into communities, oh, I don't want that. It ruins my community kind of attitude. And this is so exciting, I can't even tell you. Thank you very much.
But I would like to add to that. That's a good point that you made. And I don't mean to be a naysayer, but we sat through meetings for the Crystal Geyser building and the development of that. I sat through every meeting of that, and there was a long list of things they promised us, and it didn't happen. So while you're different people, and this is a different time, it's like, again, what does our community really need? What do we want? Do we want all these things? What's the other side of all that? And maybe we should just really think about this. I don't know, that's my opinion anyway. Thank you. Thank you for having such a great presentation.
Thank you.
Something I also like to consider is in the phasing of a project, especially a long-range master plan that goes for 20, 25 years, if the development ceases halfway through the life of that plan document, do you still have something that in and of itself is holistic, so that you don't have to develop all parts of it to have something that at a smaller scale is still whole? So that's, I think, the finer art of master planning for a multi-parcel project or a community. So if the economy changes, if we decide we don't want to grow after the first 10 years of growth has happened, you still have something worthwhile. It's not half complete. It still stands on its own and something you're proud of. But if the sentiment changes in 10 years or population decline begins to affect us later in this century, which is coming, then you can still look at a plan outcome that at 50% completion is still good, satisfying and holistic. So these are things I think about in a master plan.
Thank you. Used to be, yeah. She said the landing used to be used for snow removal from the city. You know how we'd take the center snow down the street and they'd pile it up out at the landing? Yeah.
I used to live in Boston, so I'm familiar with the need for the snow piles. Yeah.
That's true. We had a lot of rain last year. Okay, a couple things. One, to answer your question, we did a community meeting where we decided or we discussed what we wanted this place to look like, Mount Shasta. And we have a plan, and I don't know where it is. And we lose kind of institutional knowledge with people leaving, but Tim might know where that might be located.
There's a design guideline document I saw, or was it a drafted one?
Yeah, but anyway, it was an Alpine Village feel was the #1 thing. But there's a plan where all the people's input came, and I don't know where that sits, but we could find out. Todd might know. I don't know. Also, use Tom Hazelden's.
Huh?
Tom, how do you say Tom's last name? Hazelden's, yeah. If Tom's involved already? Yeah, okay, great, fantastic. Because he's got it in for bike paths and green waterways, making things look beautiful. One thing that came up, maybe an artist in residence space to attract, creative workshops where an artist could live, paint, maybe that corner with the view of the mountain, and then teach other people to, have classes. And then as far as the native tribes that are associated with the mountain, nobody ever stayed up here in the wintertime. Everybody went back to their areas and they traveled up here in the summers, from my understanding. But maybe a museum or a space, a ceremonial space that could be shared amongst the number of tribes that call this area home and sacred and have long-term relationship with the area. That's it.
And some of that at UCSB. UCSB.
Pam mentioned shops and so on, and you're right. The retail follows the homes. One of the things that Mount Shasta has long had as one of its principles is not to become a wherever town. What? A anywhere town.
Oh, excuse me.
We want to remain unique to the point of saying, no, we're not going to have national chain stores come in. So that's another factor in development of the landing. That's up to current city council and the developers, but that has been a principle for a long time. Another thing that we had talked about, and I think somebody here tonight talked about it, or perhaps you did, the possibility of the living upstairs and having commercial downstairs.
Live work, yeah.
Live work.
Yeah, and at least prior city councils have thought that could be a good idea. So.
And I will let you know that I'm not trying to make you feel like you're just part of the ordinary, but this is part of a national trend. People want to see entrepreneurial, independent retailers in their small town. I have been impressed with already what you have. I don't know how you let that Starbucks in, but that's it. No, I'm bad joke. A bad joke. I'm not a Starbucks fan. But my point to you is, what's the point of that? Because you can go to any mall anywhere USA, and even from a visitor standpoint, I'm an international expert on visitors, tourists. You can give it to me. If you're a tourist, do you really want to go to a unique little town where you've got friends that live there and see another chain restaurant? No, you want to see something unique. And it kind of amazes me how some towns don't get that.
Okay, good evening. I got one clarifying question, maybe premature, but a lot of good ideas. But about the infrastructure and planning, we are a fire-prone area. We've got a little comfortable around here, not having fires burn through town, but we've also allowed a lot of growth here. There's been a tremendous amount of trees, especially on the east side. So people come to think that this is natural, but it's not. It's man-altered, where trees per acre is well above what this landscape was ever meant to have naturally. But I haven't heard anything about fire-safe planning, ensuring that our streets are adequate size, that our density is not too high, that we have built-in green space for when that fire does come through that area.
We
So
actually, yeah,
Go ahead.
thank you very much for mentioning that. We actually spent a good deal of time talking to your fire chief, about that issue, because it's become a bigger and bigger concern with any new community with growth. You want to address
Yeah,
that?
and fires, as we all know, I mean, I'm from Southern California. I have family in Reno, Tahoe area, and holy cow, fires go through suburban areas now. So just because we're building this area out doesn't mean it's at risk itself. And there's new insurance standards or insurance set standards in the state that are likely to become code over time. The buffering zone 0 rules are basically the standard of care or standard of practice for site planning. No vegetation adjacent to a building. And when you think about, well, we'd like a grove of trees or a stand of trees or a windbreak between two buildings, but you've got two buildings that are 50, 60 feet apart, or 60 feet apart, you really can't have much at all vegetation in between those two buildings. So the site planning has to be
So you guys are going to incorporate green
Those are
belts.
going to be incorporated in the site design.
Yeah.
But I'll also add that of all the places to build a significant new amount of growth in this municipality and in the county, you want it to be on a site like this, adjacent to your existing development, versus starting something new further afield or in unincorporated area. Because this is the most fire-safe locale, given the alternative to build further afield or out in the trees or.
Just your location on the east side
Yes.
is pretty dense.
Yeah.
So
and
we can't,
that
the
slope.
whole county is classified as very high.
Yeah.
So some of us struggle getting insurance.
Well, and I think about that
And we're all
down slope,
insured.
that slope down into the site, and it's thick with trees, and and they're all the same age too. They're probably all 100 years old. That might have been clear cut, so their tops are the same height, and those are considerations we make when we're doing housing. It's the code too.
So if you make that a public safety facility for the police and fire, then they'll be
There,
closer.
that's right.
Thank
you. That's also included.
Evacuation of a site is important too. This is something our company is really getting into in terms of traffic modeling. So you want to make sure a site can be evacuated quickly. So multiple entrances along the road to get to highway or get out of town if there's an evacuation order. That's a factor. And whether that can impede evacuation of downtown, those are also safety factors in an urban plan now. That's not a part of our scope, but that will be a part of a CEQA scope or a traffic study that you have to do.
Okay, well, thank you very much. It is now just a little bit past 8 o'clock. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. It was a great session. Thank you for your comments, your input, for being respectful and kind. I know that there might be a few people in the room who did not speak or say anything tonight. If you have comments and you would like to email them to city staff, we will take your emails as well. We've got a lot of homework to do. City staff has a lot of homework to do. This is only the first part of what we're doing. We're gonna do this again. The second town hall meeting is going to be on August 11th. The team's gonna come back with a manifestation of what we all talked about tonight. And we're just gonna keep tackling this a little bit at a time to make sure that we stay on task. So I think that is it for this evening. You know, I know we could probably go on for another couple of hours, but it's getting dark and I think they'd like to close this up at some point. But you have my contact information. If you don't, my card is on the dais. Thank you again for being here, and I hope to see you again at the next one. Thank you.
I think they should come to the next outreach.
They had planned to come to something urgent, but they didn't make it. Yeah. Well, we're not, by the way, we weren't involved in that decision, just to clarify. The city chose the development. We're not.
Actually, Kim could probably answer that. Kim, she had a question about the development.
Without my wallet, so I don't have my business cards.
That's okay. I really enjoyed your comments. Thank you. I really enjoyed your comments. Thank you.
It's a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you.
I hope you get to, are you going to spend time?
Oh, yes.
You're here for a week.
I'm here for a week.
2 days.
This is my, well, I came here for another reason. I went to the Burning Tango Argentina Festival. The Burning Tango, I'm an